What is going on, everyone? Unofficial Star Wars here. Hope you're all doing well. And in today's video, we have our first episode breakdown to the Bad Batch, and I'm really excited to talk about it and break down some things that you guys may have missed. So let's get right into it. Right off the bat, clearly this is really obvious. There's spoilers, so click off now if you haven't seen it yet. Go watch it. It's absolutely a minute, and the first episode is actually 75 minutes or 70 minutes long, like they actually said it would be. It wasn't 3 separate episodes split into 3 different sections. It was actually one long 70-minute episode, and it was absolutely amazing. Rather than jumping right off the bat over Revenge of the Sith, we kind of do get the overlap of Revenge of the Sith. It's something I really wanted and was looking forward to, and it's exactly what we got, and it was actually better than I thought it would be because we got to see Kanan Jarrus, or Caleb Doom, known at the time. It was actually his name, Caleb Doom. It was a Jedi name, and later on changing it to Kanan Jarrus for you Star Wars Rebels fans out there. I myself am just starting out Star Wars Rebels, and I'm really enjoying it, so definitely go check it out. It's awesome. I personally really do like it. I think something with that is it's really the thought that counts. They could have just picked any random Jedi to have the Clone Force 99 or the Bad Batch to go be with, but out of all the different ones they chose, it was Kanan Jarrus and his master, which we actually do get to see the whole Order 66 breakdown and how scared this young Kanan Jarrus was. He kind of already sounds like he went through puberty. His voice was pretty deep. It was kind of funny, to be honest. I mean, it didn't really feel like his body was matching his voice, but hey, that's just a thing when you're at that age, so it's totally fine. No hate towards that. It was just kind of funny, something I wanted to point out. But yeah, seeing Kanan Jarrus in the flesh here in Star Wars, the Clone Wars or Star Wars The Bad Batch was pretty awesome to see, and the whole episode here with Order 66 actually happening was pretty emotional, with his master being taken down by the clone troopers. It's much like Order 66 we see in Jedi Fallen Order. Very similar, I think, and it had a lot of parallels towards that. It felt very similar to that now that I mention it. That that's a bad thing or anything, I'm pretty sure that's how many Jedis and Padawans were feeling at the time when they were watching their master being shot down by their clones. I mean, it's pretty heartbreaking to see. I gotta say, the voice actor for Kanan Jarrus' master here, she went absolutely crazy. I loved her voice acting. It was absolutely amazing, and it was pretty emotional to hear her screaming and crying when she was being killed. You could definitely feel a lot of emotion in that, and something I really do like that they did with that. And it's something that's kind of difficult to do with animated characters, is to really bring emotion towards them, I feel like, and that's something that Clone Wars and Rebels and now the Bad Batch does an amazing job at, I think, and they really do capture that. But like I mentioned before, I was absolutely thrilled to see, the Bad Batch overlap with Revenge of the Sith and Clone Wars Season 7 with Order 66. Absolutely amazing. Something that definitely had me on the tip of my toes, at the edge of my seat, had me very tense throughout the entire episode, 75 minutes long, was Crosshair turning and actually having Order 66 happen to him. It was something that felt subtle, and it didn't actually affect him as much as it was supposed to, and it was pretty interesting to see that actually happen, rather than just fully go on and it actually affected him and made him turn. He kind of fought with it, kind of like we see with Rex. The Order didn't take full control of his brain, and so he kind of fought around with it and wasn't totally clear on what was going on. He thought that the others were on board on what he was doing, but apparently not, and he didn't clearly really see that. And it was pretty interesting, furthermore, to see the Caminos actually go in there and up his, Order 66 inhibitor trip mind control towards that, and really make him go bad. He definitely felt pretty intimidating, and really it didn't have that Clone Wars feel, and that's something that the show probably isn't going for. It's probably going for a darker theme, and it's something that they're really showing. Of course, there's some lighter feels to it here and there, kind of like The Mandalorian is a darker themed show, but of course it has Baby Yoda in there, which is a lighter theme. I think that the Bad Batch show is doing the same exact thing, except with Omega. She's kind of there to be that quote-unquote Baby Yoda, and what is that lighter theme to kind of bring kids and other people into the show, I think, and it's really opening up, and that brings me to other theories and ideas that I want to talk about. But first I want to talk about Omega. She was a really interesting character and had a lot of speculations from what we've seen in the trailers. There was a lot of confusion of who exactly Omega was, all the way down to the point, is it a boy or a girl? I didn't even know myself, but it is confirmed that she is actually a girl, and furthermore that she is a deformed clone, and that is pretty interesting to hear about and see. She kind of fits in with the Bad Batch pretty well, seeing that they're all deformed clones, and furthermore she's probably one of the most interesting deformed clones in my own opinion, seeing that she's a female when it's a male host is really interesting to see. Out of all these, thousands and thousands of clones that were made, there's one female and one defective, that actually turned out to be a female. It's pretty interesting. Something I wanted to point out, I wasn't really sure if it was clear. Also, I have a huge feeling, mark my words, I'm going to be the first one to call it, Omega is going to be a lot like Ahsoka Tano. Let me explain a little more. When we all first met Ahsoka Tano, she was this young, bratty, little annoying kid that no one really liked and didn't exactly belong on the battlefield, but I think Omega is going to prove herself to really be a lot like Ahsoka Tano and kind of grow and develop to be one of the most loved Star Wars characters out there. It's said that the Bad Batch show is going to get multiple seasons, so we're really going to be able to see her grow over time. Just hear me out on that one. I have a good feeling about it, and it kind of brings me to my next point, where we do meet Omega on Kamino. It's not something I really felt at first, but I felt a lot of tension between, you know, the Empire and the Bad Batch. It almost felt like Tarkin was trying to kill the Bad Batch. It really pushed him to the limits when he brought out the Dark Troopers, actually, in the training kind of arena there. It was a training arena. The Dark Troopers there are very early development Dark Troopers that we do later on see in The Mandalorian and other Star Wars comics and media. And kind of like I mentioned before, seeing Crosshair actually was affected by Order 66. It was pretty interesting to see him still actually work with his fellow comrades and brothers, the Bad Batch, his actual squad. Which in a way actually foreshadows the Order 66 process and inhibitor chip not fully taking complete control of his mind. Like we see with other clone troopers, they're just full-on jerks to them and have no mercy. And that's something that the Clone Wars and now the Bad Batch is kind of doing, is humanizing the clones as their own people and persons. Moving on to Palpatine's little speech there we also saw in the episode. It's just a quick little reference or parallel I saw with this whole scene here going on. It directly correlated to this scene here in The Force Awakens, actually, which I thought was pretty neat and interesting to see. You know, different parallels in Star Wars overall are always interesting and cool to see as well. I do apologize, I'm kind of jumping around to different spots and scenes within the actual episode. It's just a lot to cover in this whole 70-minute episode, and I want to really get to the good stuff here. So when we do see the Bad Batch actually on Kamino, we see a very interesting scene here. When they're in the hangar, we actually see a couple of clone troopers carrying a dead body and then a lightsaber drop out of the casket there, out of underneath the cloth, and a lot of speculations are going around on whose lightsaber this is and who that Jedi was. I want to talk about this for a split second here. The most logical answer, and I do agree with this, is Jedi Commander Shaak Ti. We all know that she spent a lot of time on Kamino and was actually stationed there. Now, there's two problems that I found with this. The first one is that we get a very quick clip of the actual lightsaber hilt. It's a very, short look at it, so it's kind of difficult to see who it is. I've tried pausing it and all that type of stuff. I'm not that great on lining it up, but looking back and forth at multiple images of Shaak Ti's lightsaber and her, and then at this lightsaber that fell out of that casket, they do seem to be pretty similar, actually. And the second problem here is that Shaak Ti has like 5 death scenes. Of course, all of them kind of take place in the same type of time span and in the same spectrum of things, during Revenge of the Sith, and off and on if it's General Grievous that killed her or if it was Order 66. And the furthermore actual problem with that, rather than her just having 5 separate death scenes, the one apparently that takes place in the Clone Wars, which gives us and narrows it down to a pretty good amount here, is Obi-Wan in, season 7 of the Clone Wars actually says they sent Shaak Ti to go engage Count Dooku and to save the Chancellor, but they hadn't heard from her, so that they were sending Obi-Wan and Anakin, which actually leads us into Revenge of the Sith, which, makes sense. But there's 5 different death scenes for her pretty much, and none of them really are canon and have a complete explanation. Right when we thought we had our answer, things seem to get more confusing, although I could just be overshooting it and overthinking it. Another thing I'd like to mention is that Tarkin seems to be a huge focus within this episode and seems to be doing a lot of things in this episode, and we really do get to see where he is during this time of Revenge of the Sith and this final season of Clone Wars and leading into, A New Hope and then Star Wars Rebels and all that. In the comics, he's a pretty cool character, and it's pretty cool to see him once again here in the Bad Batch show. Moving on, we do get to see the one and only Saw Gerrera. He's one of my top favorite characters. I love him in the Clone Wars, in Star Wars Rebels, in Rogue One. I love him in all of Star Wars content. He's absolutely amazing. Awesome character to see here once again, and really get to see the upbringing of the Rebel Alliance beginning so quickly after the event of Revenge of the Sith. It's pretty interesting to see. I mean, we're literally talking here days, literally 3 days of Revenge of the Sith to where we are now. It's pretty crazy to see this whole upbringing of the Rebel Alliance, and it's starting to happen here. It's kind of cool to see, and I'm really interested to see if we get to see more of Saw Gerrera. Another thing I wanted to mention real quick here, in this whole scene where we do get to see Saw Gerrera, we hear some familiar sounds. We hear some really familiar sounds here dating back to The Empire Strikes Back. We get a lot of the soundtrack actually from The Empire Strikes Back when Luke goes to visit Yoda on Dagobah. It's pretty interesting to hear the different sounds and creatures that you can hear there in the background sound exactly like the swamp sounds on Dagobah. It's a pretty interesting thing, and it's something I really like to see, hear. It gave a sense of the original trilogy as we kind of transition over to the original trilogy. It's small, subtle things like this, you know, it really helps with this whole transition of the Clone Wars. The Saw Gerrera was a much familiar face we got to see in the trailer, and another familiar face we got to see in the trailer was Captain Rex. Everybody cheered and clapped when we got to see him and Saw Gerrera, both of them. I for sure was clapping and cheering. I was really happy to see them. Seeing the two appear in the trailer kind of confirms that they're going to be in the show, of course. That's what the trailer is. At the very end of the episode, we hear, you know, Hunter say to the rest of the crew, we have to go visit this one, you know, close contact to lay low here, and that one close contact to lay low here is going to be Captain Rex. It looks like from the trailer whole perspective thing is apparently that we will be visiting a very familiar planet here that they're going to find Captain Rex on. Is going to be called Sector J19. Apparently it's an outer rim planet that we saw in the Clone Wars. It doesn't exactly ring a bell to me, but it may to some of you, and from what it looks like in the trailer, like I mentioned, is that much like we see with Jakku after the original trilogy, it's kind of like the junkyard of giants. I think that this planet here is going to be the junkyard of giants, except for the prequel trilogy and the Clone Wars. It's going to be pretty cool to see. I'm very excited to see what we can see here in the graveyard of giants. And then two theories I'm going to be keeping in the back of my mind here. I did two separate videos on them actually here. You can find them on the channel. Of who we could possibly see in the show, it makes most reasonable sense is, of course, one here, Grogu, seeing him alive during the Clone Wars and living through it and probably surviving that. There's still a small hope and small glimmer of hope that in some manner that we do get to see Grogu or Baby Yoda, whatever you want to call the cute little guy. It does kind of seem that we're past Order 66 here, and that's kind of where I was hoping my theory would take place, of seeing Grogu being rescued by the Bad Batch at the temple. And then, of course, the other theory here is Mace Windu actually surviving. Like I said, of course, we could still probably see Grogu in some sort of manner, just not the manner that I think we would have. It's something that Dave Filoni would be really cool to see there, but I think the second one here, Mace Windu surviving, I think would be a huge one. And the big difference here for Mace Windu and Grogu both appearing is that Mace Windu kind of, quote-unquote, has a lot more time and a much bigger gap that it would make sense for him to actually appear in. Especially in the animated form, seeing that Samuel L. Jackson is a little too old to be kind of betraying such a, you know, windful, no pun intended, Jedi that's kind of, you know, loose and out there and is really mobile on his feet and such, and seeing that Samuel L. Jackson's getting a bit too old, the animated form for Samuel L. Jackson's Mace Windu to come back would probably be the most ideal, and it probably makes the most sense. Another thing I wanted to mention is that Samuel L. Jackson himself has been doing a lot of Instagram posting and tweeting on social media about Star Wars just in general. I can't really remember if he does this every year for May the 4th and Star Wars Day, but it's a huge heads up to that and makes it even more plausible and likely to happen, I feel like. And that there, ladies and gentlemen, is about going to conclude our breakdown and theories and reviews to episode 1 of The Bad Batch. It was really awesome and exciting to see. I definitely 10 out of 10 enjoyed it. It was pretty awesome to see. Absolutely loved it. Nothing disappointed, and it definitely for sure lived up to the hype of what it was going to be, and if not up to the hype of what it was going to be, beyond the hype of what it was going to be. Drop a like on this video if you did enjoy it, as it really does help with the channel, and subscribe to stick around for future videos and content and breakdowns to The Bad Batch. We're getting really close here to over 500 subscribers. We've been growing like crazy, and I want to thank you all for all the love and support. I am, for one, definitely going to want to hear some of your guys' theories and opinions and what you guys thought about the Bad Batch here, episode 1, so definitely go comment down below on what you thought about it and some of your comments and theories on it. I definitely love to read and see those comments. Check out our Instagram, Unofficial Star Wars, for daily Star Wars Instagram posts, news, facts, memes, all of it, link in the description. And of course, until next time, may the Force be with you. Peace out.